Okay, we're live. Third time's the charm. Welcome. Welcome back to Alliance Aces. I'm Chip Rodgers. I'm VP of Marketing and Alliances with WorkSpan. And I am excited and honored today to be joined by Norma Watenpaugh. Norma, in the Alliances world, Norma needs no introduction. But Norma, but I will.
Thank you.
Norma is founding principal with Phoenix Consulting Group. Norma has a background that I think, started out at Sun maybe, or Oracle. I think it was at Sun?
EA, all now part of Oracle.
Yeah. And Fujitsu, but was it Fujitsu at the time, or
it was actually Amdahl at the time, and yeah, Fujitsu was one of their major strategic partners that ended up buying them.
Really? Oh, there you go. But then leading the Phoenix Consulting Group practice around alliances and best practices, and really, Norma, you're an institution in the alliances space, and so I'm really excited to have a chance to talk to you today.
Thank you.
Good. So, our audience, we talked a little bit ahead of time, our audience loves to hear about best practices, and you have just, so much experience, both as a practitioner and then also as a consultant, working with your, clients and helping them work through some challenges. Maybe we could start there and just talk a little bit about some of the things. And I know that's a broad question, but maybe some of the things that you think of that come top to mind in terms of, for alliance professionals, things to always keep in mind.
Well, I think from my perspective, having been an alliance manager, one of the things that always had me dismayed is that it really wasn't recognized as a profession. And that's really been my passion for the last 18, 19 years since I've been consulting and working with the Association of Strategic Alliance Professionals, was to kind of elevate what we do into a profession so that it's recognized for the skills and competencies and talent that we bring to the job. And, in terms of best practices, there are a lot of things. I mean, there's a lot of business processes that we have to be very familiar with. A lot of them have to do with how you select partners, how you engage them and create the alliance and operate them, and knowing when to either transform or terminate.
Yeah.
But, the thing that really fascinates me are really just the breadth of skills that it takes to be an alliance manager, because so much of it is like running a business. In fact, it is like running a business, and you have to have the breadth of skills to do that.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. That has been a common theme, and I think that's something that alliance professionals enjoy and find exciting about being an alliance leader, is that you essentially you're running your own sort of mini business within the business.
And sometimes very entrepreneurial. It's like running a startup, right? As you're trying to get an alliance off the ground and trying to figure out what new joint offers you're going to take to market, whether or not there is a market for it, and getting salespeople engaged and enabled and engaged around it. So it really is like a startup with every initiative. So I can remember when I was running, alliance organizations, it was like we'd have 10 or 12 product launches, if you will, every year, and getting them off the ground into the market, and getting the sales teams energized around them.
Yeah. What are some of the challenges in that? Because that's a really important part of the job, is sort of understanding your own portfolio of solutions, understanding your partners' capabilities, and putting some things together, whether it's software and services, or two kinds of software, or regional specialties or industry specialties. How tell me a little bit about that. How did you go about doing that with your partners and launching them into market?
It always starts with the customer, working backwards from the customer, and what are the unmet needs, and how you can put together a solution. If not on your own, then how do you put the right ecosystem of partners together? And I think more and more that's what alliance managers are seeing. It's not just one-to-one partnerships anymore. It's the whole solution stack, right? And putting together that set of partners that can create a whole solution, particularly in some of the more complex deployments we see, like IoT or business transformation. It's usually a lot bigger than just two alliances. They usually are, full constellations of alliances going to market together.
Yeah, that's really true. It's just it's really been a big shift. I think cloud has brought that on.
Yeah.
We're doing some work with Microsoft, and they are really trying to. Azure is a huge priority, and so there's a lot that's going on that could be Microsoft solutions, but they are kind of agnostic, right? They want to have it's whatever the customers are looking for. So it could be SAP, and maybe there's some DocuSign and OpenText and some other capability, solutions that are a part of that, and it runs on Azure and it's delivered to customers, right? So.
Yeah, and we've seen recently that Microsoft's put a big emphasis on the partner-to-partner role, and making it easier for partners to find each other and to work together. And I think, when I look at a lot of the you pointed out a number of these CEO studies from Accenture and IBM and Boston Consulting Group, and they're all talking about how ecosystems are the new competitive advantage. And this is not just high tech, this is all across industries, putting together these ecosystems and platforms to be more competitive in the market. And that's where, those of us who've been in the alliance profession a long time really have, some really specific and unique skills to bring forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting point, I guess, is that you're right. I mean, technology in many ways sort of gets connected into other industries because, yeah, right.
It's everywhere. Yeah, it's
everywhere, right? So there are connections, but it's kind of like if you're, I mean, in ASAP, you were talking about ASAP, and there are a lot of pharma organizations part of the ASAP, and that's, again, same kind of thing where there are these alliances that go on, but it's all delivered with technology, so it's sort of connected, but.
Particularly when you start talking about patient-centric healthcare, is that now that brings not just technology and our smartphones, but a lot of different medical devices and disciplines together.
Yeah, interesting. So you talked about skills. What are maybe we could talk a little bit about that as well. So what are some of the skills that are really important to develop and have as an alliance manager? Well,
actually, when you probably know, I worked with putting together the certifications for alliance managers. And when we did that, we looked at kind of 4 different groupings of skills. And one are the business processes of alliance. This is joint business planning and governance and metrics and putting together an escalation process. And that's largely what the certifications are built on. But then there's also another set of industry skills, things that are unique to your industry. If you want to put together a competitive joint offer, you have to know what the trends in the industry are that you're working within, and what's going to be a good bet. You also need to know your own company internally, your own governance, your own culture, your decision-making processes. Not only to get things done within your company, but being able to work with your partner to understand how to get things done.
Yeah.
And then lastly, this one area that I think is really important, sometimes overlooked, are the soft skills, the people skills, the leadership. And I think this is an area that alliance managers bring a lot of leadership and executive skills to do the job. I mean, being able to assemble virtual teams, to be able to lead through influence, because you don't have a command and control authority. You have to be able to be persuasive and appeal to people's own self-interest and the good of the company, to align to the strategy of the organization and to the objectives of the alliance and their own self-interest. You tend to have to be kind of strategic, hence a strategic alliance. You have to know what the strategic intent is you're trying to fulfill, and yet you have to be able to execute, pull together the teams and engage them and motivate them and ensure that they're on board and they know what their roles are and their responsibilities, how to execute on them. One of the things that I mentioned in the blog that I posted on your ACES community was a study done by Pearson Learning and the Society of Human HR Resources. And, that talent assessment, I think, was very telling. Some of the things that they came forward with, that alliance, they profiled with the best alliance managers, their profiles.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, that was a 3-hour assessment. It was pretty rigorous. But the ability to think critically and analytically scored very, very high, highest other executive levels. The strategic thinking, being able to be highly creative and resourceful, people skills, empathy.
Mm-hmm.
So, these are all skills that they found in the higher performing alliance managers, and they're actually the same skills that they look for in high-level executives.
Yeah. So it all sort of fits together, right? Because, like you said earlier, right? It's like running a business, and so there's some parallels there, right? You really need to have some of those skills, and because you are called upon to do so many different different things in the role.
Being able to work across functions and understanding how they fit together, and
yeah, I'm glad you brought up the blog that you wrote recently, and because it was really fascinating, and thank you for contributing that. It also got a lot of good conversation going. So
I think we often take for granted the soft skills. It's
important. Yeah.
As I mentioned, it's usually about, do you know how to sell? Well, that's a part of the job, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, selling demands soft skills as well.
Oh yeah.
Because you're working with people, and you need to be able to read people and
what their interests are, and
yeah. So yeah, no, that's great. A little bit of a change of topic, but I really want to hear about you're working on a project, a really important project around with the standards organization with ISO, and Norma, I'd love to have you share a little bit about what's going on there, what it is you're trying to achieve, and sort of where you are in that process.
Yeah, this is something I've also been very dedicated to, because it contributes to the profession to have an ISO standard around collaborative business relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unique in that it's both a process standard, as most management standards are, but it also addresses these unique skills and competencies. With the understanding that you can have the best process for collaboration, and if the people skills aren't there, you're still going to have trouble getting these things to work, right?
Right.
So it does have a recognition that it does take a certain set of collaborative skills to be able to manage a business-to-business relationship.
Mm-hmm.
The standard itself, it came out in late 2017. We've continued to work on other aspects of the standard, such as implementation guides to help people understand how to, understand the requirements now to implement them. A recent document that we probably should have done first, but I think is really important, is a principles of collaboration. The standard itself is like 128 requirements. The
Wow.
principles document is 12 principles. I can deal with that. I think most people can deal with that.
Right.
But I think that was important to do, because now as we look at how do you apply this standard to small businesses or to ecosystems, that becomes the underlying foundation for it. Particularly for like a small business. Are they going to pay attention to 128 requirements?
Right.
Not if they don't have to. Right?
There's no time, right?
Yeah, really, So, but a 12 principles, okay, maybe they can grasp that. Maybe they have the time for that, and it makes sense. And the same with ecosystems. If you've got 5 or 6 companies working in a collaboration together, or even larger, 128 requirements, you better have 12 simple principles you can all adhere to.
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that part of it, because it's not a requirement, it's guidance. But I think it makes, if the goal of the standard is to promote more collaborative relationships, I think that goes a long ways.
How is, tell me a little bit about the process. And so it was the original standard was you mentioned was published in 2017. What's the how is that sort of rolled out and adopted and all that?
Well, first of all, as an ISO standard, how it came together is that we have a U.S. group that's sponsored with ASAP and ANSI, American National Standards Institute. And we've got a US team, about 10, 12 people, who we try to get the broadest cross-section of people who are in, collaborative relationships. And that's alliances, but it's also alliances with suppliers or nonprofits or government, private, public kind of alliances. So getting a very broad perspective. And other national standards bodies are doing the same. So when we get together in ISO Standards Committee, we've got perspectives from UK, from Sweden, from Malaysia. The Chinese just joined the Standards Committee last October. So, you get that all different perspective from different cultures and points of view, and contributing to what the standard is, all the different requirements. And it follows alliance processes like partner selection, and not that it tells you how to select a partner, but it says you need a process that helps you vet what partners are best going to fit the purpose of your alliance. You have to have governance. Doesn't tell you how that governance looks like, just that you can demonstrate that you thought it through and have an appropriate governance. So that's kind of how the standards, come together, is through that kind of a consensus process. We are currently working with a number of different groups, as you mentioned, to try to create awareness and adoption around it. And it's actually going a lot faster in Europe, I have to admit, than it is in the US, largely because the British Standards Institute was early on in this and has got a number of years head start. But we are working within the US to try to create more visibility around it. And more importantly, not just that you have to comply with the standard, but just the benefits of having a common approach to alliance management or collaboration management. The common vocabulary, a common way of thinking about it, just makes these things go much faster and much more smoother, and can create more value, because you're not, debating what governance is. You kind of have some common ground.
Right. You're all, like you say, speaking the same language, and then you can innovate within a framework, right?
Absolutely. And that's kind of where ASAP is, the Association of Strategic Alliance Professionals, is that, they're a source of best practices.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So they're again, the standard and what ASAP brings to the table and best practices are very complementary.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so ASAP has, there's a book on the best practices. There are, training courses and certifications and all that, right?
Yeah. Now a standard, and actually we'll be introducing at the summit something that I and another colleague and an organization called New Information Paradigms is rolling out a collaborative maturity assessment, partnering capability assessment, which is mapped to both the ISO standard and ASAP best practices. So companies who want to look a little closer at their ability to partner effectively have a tool they can start with to do that initial assessment.
Interesting. So speaking of ASAP, we have the summit event coming up in early March.
Yeah.
In Fort Lauderdale. That's going to be that's a must-attend event, right? I mean, that's where really all alliance professionals come together and share ideas and yeah.
And I'm excited about this year because we're kind of expanding the horizon a little bit. Kind of where alliances are going is, I think the theme is agile collaboration in ecosystems, or I should get the title right, but I think that is exactly where things are going. Is partnerships are becoming more multilateral ecosystems, and I think the skills in becoming more agile, like more agile businesses are going to become more important.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. We when we're hearing that from our customers as well, I'm sure you are from your clients. You mentioned the Microsoft P2p program earlier. That's exactly, the very much about what it is that they're that they're doing, and they've WorkSpan is helping with that project. So
and I'm really very excited about what you're doing, because I've been saying for years there need to be a digital platform for alliances. And you're here.
Well, we are focused on alliances 100%, and really we, similar to, I think, how you started off this discussion, that wanting to elevate the profession and really focus on capabilities and helping, with support. I mean, the community and these podcast discussions have really been about sharing ideas and I don't know, making heroes out of the folks that are
hero, yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, everybody's doing such great work, and just really want to showcase it. So and you are, and very much the same with you. Really have been so just excited to have you join and hear some of your thoughts. So hey, Norma, I have a question for you. As I was I was sort of thinking about this interview, I looked at your sort of background and history and everything, and something I saw was kind of interesting. Now she's like, okay, where is this going? No, so you went to Nebraska and you have a degree in physics.
Yeah, that's right.
So
how I ended up in an alliance role. A people's
First of
world.
all, I'm impressed, right? Yeah.
Well, I yeah, came out here, and the first jobs I had were technical writing, reverse engineering, and documentation, that sort of thing. But I was always very fascinated about the marketing aspect. And once I got into marketing, got my MBA in marketing, went into marketing.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed doing more of the strategic marketing development, opening new markets and opportunities, and that meant partners. They were the most effective and efficient way to get there from here. So that's my physics background coming out. It's very pragmatic. How do I get there from here? I need partners.
That's great. That's great. Well, Norma, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you spending time with us today. Okay, so let me ask. So I take that back. Let me ask one other question.
Okay.
It's because I've asked this of a lot of folks. If you have any advice for someone that is maybe in another area, or they hear some of these stories and they're thinking, well, this could be an interesting profession for me to look into. Any advice for someone new that's thinking of getting into alliances?
I'd encourage it. I mean, I've always loved it because it was such a diverse profession. I remember remarking to a colleague of mine that I liked it because you wore so many hats. And he looked at me and said, "No, Norma, you wear all the hats."
I like that one. All the hats. That's a good one. Yeah. Well, that's great. All right. Well, good. Norma, thank you again. I really appreciate you joining us and sharing your time today and your thoughts and expertise and talents. And
thank you.
And if anyone wants to get in touch with you, what's a good way to reach out to you?
Probably my email, normaw@phoenixcg.com.
Perfect. Good.
And happy to answer anyone's questions or just have a chat.
And I know you are doing consulting work for, in a number of, for companies of all sizes, like, large and small on, alliances. So just a great wealth of information and help. So good.
Well, I appreciate you inviting me and allowing me to talk about what I love so much. So.
Very good. So with that, I think we'll wrap. So actually, one other thing, if you have a chance, stop and take a look at. I'll be publishing this interview on allianceaces.com and stop in there and ask questions. If you have questions based on this interview, you can ask Norma questions and. Check out Norma's blog actually as well, because on soft skills, really a good, interesting and great perspective, and really appreciate you sharing those thoughts and very good. Norma, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you on the next Alliance Aces.